This is Brian Dunaway, and you're listening to Comics Coast to Coast, episode 207, the Nate Piekos interview. Can't wait to talk to him of Blambot fame. First, let me introduce my co-host, Joel Duggan of Starcrossed Online. Joel.
That is me. Don't wear it out.
All right. And I also got Matt the Wad, or Matthew Ducharme from mattthewad.com. Matt, how are you?
I am fine, and please wear it out.
All right. And tonight we are broadcasting live on YouTube and on Alpha Geek Radio and everywhere else. And Nate Piekos is the lucky contestant who got to sit in with all of our technical issues. Thank you, Nate, so much.
What do I win?
That's right. You win
52 minutes with us.
52 minutes. That's good, Joel. 52 minutes with us. That is fantastic.
Quick thinking, Joel.
That's exclusive.
I am the witty one.
You are indeed. Tonight, Nate, I want to talk to you about Blambot, but I also want to go over your great web comics that you've done in the past, which just blow me away. Matter of fact, everything you do, you're like, you know how when they in Star Trek, when they go out into space and they run into that alien being that's nothing but a ball of energy. You guys seen this? This is Nate. Nate is like this form that I can't understand because he is so full of all this energy. It's amazing.
Oh, you just imagine what my wife has to put up with.
Oh my gosh, that is so sad for her. Yep. All right, Nate, you graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Design from Rhode Island College in 1998. That wasn't that long ago. That's what, like, it would be old enough to drive, right? Was that like 15 or 16?
Well, I don't do math, but
I don't do the math, so forget it.
I'm 38 now.
Right.
So I graduated, yeah. I mean, I had other jobs before I did comics, but.
Right. But you have other jobs right now. Are you working with Dark Horse, you said?
I do a whole ton of lettering for Dark Horse, yes.
Right. And lettering, man, I mean, you are great at everything, but your lettering blows me away. You recently had a great article that you wrote up on the action dialogue that's on your blog. That was a great read.
Thank you.
Oh, see?
I try to share.
You do share, and that's what this show is all about, getting behind the scenes and finding out what you're doing that is so fantastic. And you can go to blambot.com and check out all the fonts there. I know I've used the dialogue fonts from there because at one point in time when I was doing my webcomic, everybody back in the day, they all thought you had to do it by hand. They're like, okay, right? And so it's like, so even for a while, I remember there was a whole big craze among in the community of webcomics that was like, ooh, you should get yourself a personalized font. You should go, you write out each of the letters and they'll convert it into your own font and they'll hand it back to you. And then you can make your life so much easier. And they always look like crap to me.
Yeah, well, the automated services online are pretty horrible.
They're pretty bad.
There's just, they don't, you need a human to kern a font for you. So
you really do. Are you a human?
Mostly. Yeah.
All right. Good.
Interesting. I'm going to chime in and actually say that the font that I've been using on Starcrossed for 3.5 years is one of those free services.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Maybe I lucked out, or maybe I'm just that anal when I was doing the setup that things sort of worked out for me. But yeah, now I'm remarkably self-conscious about the kerning on my font.
You'll notice it most on letters like when a T or an A is next to each other, or a V or an A, or things that should scoot together a little bit more. Probably don't.
Probably don't. Yeah.
Now I've got to analyze.
I am not going to my webcomic site right now on the podcast to see what A's and T's are next to each other.
Well, consider that when I make a font, I check over 11,000 kerning pairs.
Wow.
So
that's insane.
I don't think the automated service does that.
No, I don't imagine it does. It's funny. I was looking. I'm not sure whether it was on your blog or potentially on Facebook, where I saw it looked like an Instagram picture or something of you in the process of making a font, and I saw to the bottom you had listed. I think you were working on the letter S, and then it was like SA, SB, SC, SD. Like it just goes on and on and on. I'm just like, wow. Like that is attention to detail, my friend.
That's mind numbing, is what that is.
Yeah,
That's
that too.
Days of torture for every font.
How many fonts do you get out per year? Is it like do you have like a set goal that you have, or is it just kind of like when it strikes your fancy? It's like, I want to do this new kind of font.
I try to get at least one done a month, most likely two,
Right.
pay one and a free one. But like we said before the show, as I get older, I'm getting a lot more picky in my old age, and I am much less inclined these days to let something go out into the public if I'm not 100% happy with it. So I'd rather release something now that I'm really pleased with rather than just hit a deadline.
Right. Now, you know, I've started out with your free fonts when I first started. I was like, okay, let's see if this will work out. And then I loved it so much. I went back and I've seen some other fonts that I've enjoyed. And I've purchased fonts from Blambot over the years, and we've talked about it here on Comics Coast to Coast many a times. And
Cool.
I'll tell you that you have saved me so much time and so much grief. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
So,
You're welcome.
All right,
guess.
so I got a question that's not really font related.
Okay.
It's more Twitter related. I noticed on Twitter, I think it was either today or yesterday, you had posted some pictures of your Star Wars sheets that your wife got.
Yep. She knows
So
what I like.
have you installed those yet?
No, they need to be washed first.
Oh, you got to wash them first.
They're still sitting in the bedroom on a seat or something.
You gotta get the Sarlacc smell out of them first.
Yeah.
Sarlacc smell.
I can roll around on Boba Fett. It'll be
Right.
nice.
Are those I always make the mistake of getting the wrong kind of sheets when I get those things. I always end up getting something instead of getting cotton, I always end up accidentally getting flannel or something. And of course I live in the South, and that's like the worst mistake you can ever make. So you wake up and you got Darth Vader printed on your chest. Get them off.
Yeah. Well, she found them online, and we were like, "Oh my God, they make these in adult sizes!" So we couldn't resist that. So
Nice.
That's great. So she not only accepts that you're a nerd, she embraces it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh yeah, she's a little geeky herself. She's
All
a big
right.
Star Wars nut. She loves Firefly and stuff like that. So
That's great.
yeah.
You got to love that. Does that help in the relationship? I mean, so when you try to go on a vacation, is it okay if you go to like a theme vacation there with Star Wars?
Well, we don't really get vacations.
Oh, that's true.
Well, I don't get vacation. Freelance. I have working vacations. I just went to Portland out a couple weeks ago to visit Dark Horse.
Oh, nice.
So she came along for that, and that was part work, part fun. So
Right. So do you get to go to the studio much at Dark Horse?
that was the first time I worked for them for over a decade, I think.
Wow.
We were having some secret stuff meetings, and I wanted to be down there for it. So
That's great. No, that's great news. This whole digital age, I mean, you graduated in '98, and since then, I mean, the digital age has just ran us over. I mean, it is just, not only are we consuming our content digitally, we're creating content digitally. And I remember that transition from, 98 up until probably about 2005 of how snooty we got, from a syndicated cartoonist and web cartoonist who thought things need to be done a certain way, and that that you couldn't, if you went too digital, you were cheating. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like, okay, well, if you aren't putting down pencil to paper back in 2005, if you're not making, if that's not at least part of your process, then you're just a big faker is all you are.
Well, I will admit I have a Cintiq 24 HG. That's what I work on on my main workhorse computer, and I pretty much don't have a mouse anymore, and I do all my work with the the stylus and everything. But I still, anytime I'm drawing, I still have my dad's old, I don't know, thing's going to be 40 years old, drafting board in my studio.
Right.
And I, ink on Bristol board. I still do that.
Doesn't that feel good?
It
Nice.
does.
Yeah,
I've tried inking and stuff and penciling, virtually, because
Right,
I've got the tools to do it. But I don't know. I don't personally find it quite as satisfying.
Right.
So
Do you have kids?
I have no kids.
I find that a big factor in artists, whether or not they use real media or not, especially inks and that kind of stuff, is whether they have kids or not. Yeah, it's like, it's not a time thing. It's freaking kids will knock everything over and destroy everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like I have kids though. When people come down to the studio, they assume I must have children because I've got toys everywhere.
Right.
And
How many kids do you have, sir?
I have
8.
none.
None. I don't want them. They're mean.
I just like Darth Vader's helmet over there. That's all.
Just out
So
of curiosity, Nate, have you tried penciling and doing the layouts digitally, but then printing it off and inking by hand that way?
That seems like an extra step to me.
Right.
I know it feels backwards, and I've run into the issue where like I know that I can ink faster on Bristol. Like I'm
I'm
old
a
school
very
and
Yeah, I'm a very black and white guy when it comes to process. That's kind of a pun, but it's not really. My wife will tell you my world is very black and white. So if there's an extra step that I can cut out and save myself some time, I will do that.
yeah. See, I find with complicated layouts, I end up taking too long penciling them out on paper. Whereas if I can draw something, scale it, move it around, get it right. And then I'm just like, oh God, like I wish I had a printer that I could print this off and then just ink it. Because I'm looking at something where, you know, I've taken a long time to pencil it. And then I think about, oh God, I have to ink this digitally. This is going to take me 3 times as long as it would if it was just on paper.
Well, my other issue, which probably would be a good argument for me to start working digitally, is when I pencil on Bristol board, I tend to have a really heavy hand. I dig troughs in my Bristol board.
Right.
I'm not very good at being gentle, you know, lightly penciling anything. I just kind of attack it. So I end up erasing a lot.
Right.
Are you using a quill or like a pen or?
I use a lot of brush pens. What are they called? It's aluminum. It's got an aluminum shaft on it. It's Copic.
Copic. Yes. Those are the best.
Multi-liner SPBS, I think it's called. The brush tip one. That's refillable and retippable and everything.
Oh, I didn't know they had a brush one. I use the mechanical ones for some of my line art. But yeah, I use Pentel brush pen, but I haven't tried the Copic brush pen.
I love it. It's I buy things, I try them, I get rid of them, nothing works. But that's the one I keep coming back to.
Right.
The problem, you wear out the tips really fast, so you got to buy a lot of extra tips. But I've never heard of that. I usually just I don't know, go online, Amazon. I used to go to Dick Blick a lot.
Yeah.
Oh well, Jet pens would be similar to Dick Blick. They import a lot of Japanese pens.
Oh, cool.
And they ship it to the U.S. So it's actually orders over $20 in the U.S. are free shipping. I always have to pay because I'm in Canada, but you know, free plug for a great service. Their customer service is out of sight. I just had to return something the other day because I bought the wrong one. It was my fault, and they reimbursed the shipping and they gave me credit for the value of the pen on.
Oh, that's great.
On the site. Now, I had explained when I returned it that I bought the wrong one. Like I bought a .003 and I wanted an 03.
Wow.
And I was So
how small is that?
Really like for someone else that has a heavy hand, like unusable, like breakable, kind of like, you know. So I thought, oh, I should probably return this. In my return note, I said like, hey, like I don't want a refund. I just want to exchange it for a new pen. But they're fantastic and their prices are really good. Like I think the Copics run $6 or $8. Pentel brush pens are like $16, $17, and you can buy the boxes of refills. So like you can take care of yourself for months at a time with like well under like $50.
That's awesome. Yeah. Jet pens, right? Jet pens.
Jet pens. Like the plane. Jetpens.com.
Writing that down right
Bright
now.
green site. You can't miss it.
Right. And all right, let me get back to the point I was going to earlier. That was you know, we've come to a place where it seems that digital is more acceptable than it used to be as an artist. It doesn't seem to be. It's no longer an issue at all. I really don't hear anybody really talking about it anymore. But I just remember all the pains that was involved with going digital.
I don't know. I imagine it must have only been an issue among the creators community.
Right.
Because I imagine the readers probably wouldn't give a damn.
They didn't care.
They'd probably just say, "Oh, is it funny? Is it good to look at?"
The only time readers ever said anything that I really saw was when they felt that a cartoonist was using copy paste.
Yeah, there was
they didn't care for that.
A few comics I remember where you could kind of tell that they had just built these like a generic head and a generic body, and you could tell that they were just posing it. And yeah, I think that kind of pissed a few people off because they're like, "Oh, come on, really?"
But it's come full circle. People don't even care now. It's like whatever, you know. If the writing is funny, they're not as particular. Now us in the community, we kind of go, hack. Copy paste. What's wrong with you people? But all right, so you've got free fonts on Blambot as well as paid fonts. So it's not uncommon for people to feel like everything digital on the internet should be free, and if not, they'll just take it. So have you ever come across any of your fonts in the back alley of the internet? You know, kind of hanging out, smoking.
Well, any digital product is going to be subject to piracy. That's a foregone conclusion. All you can do is, try to fight the tide as best you can and keep an eye out and hope that, people are honest. But that might be a stretch, but you'd be surprised at how many, at least the businesses and publishers and corporations and magazines and whatever, anybody who's an actual business and realizes that it's going to be a tax write-off anyway.
Yeah, totally. You have any good stories about beating somebody up because they took your font, maybe like at a convention or something? Any good juicy stories there, maybe?
No, I'm not. No, sorry, no, not really. I mean, the free fonts are there for the indie folks. When I started drawing my own comics in college, it was all about Xeroxing comics and handing them out to my friends and just amusing my circle of friends. And once I started doing, decided, I'm going to try to draw something seriously and self-publish and all that stuff, I realized, this is not a cheap endeavor.
It is not.
So I sort of started Blambot with that in mind and said, from this point forward, until there is no more Blambot, that these free fonts are completely free for people who are doing indie comics.
Right.
Or small press, and even if they're using it on their merchandise or, whatever. It's just as long as you're indie, have at it.
That's great. So do you ever get a moment where you do see your font in real life, like if you're out at a convention or something and see a product?
Every time I leave my house, if I go to the supermarket, I see my fonts. Anywhere. It's really cool that I can't really escape it anymore, which is kind of fun. I can be waiting in line at the supermarket and, the cover of some magazine at the checkout will have my font on it. So
that's great. That's
really, really cool.
That's really
How long
cool
has Blambot been on the scene?
as long as I can remember.
2000, 2001, something like that. I don't know.
Nice. Bravo, sir.
Yeah. It's really a testament to your dedication to this. It's amazing because we've seen so many things come and go, and it's been around quite a while, and it's still quite popular, as it should be.
Thanks. It's
quality.
When I started, I had a day job, and right out of college, I was a graphic designer for a sign company, and did that for 5 years. And I would do that all day, and then come home and do my indie comic stuff, my fonts, Blambot, and then eventually it just started getting to the point where my first real lettering gig was with Marvel.
Right.
And once those gigs started rolling in and the fonts were doing pretty well, and I sort of consulted my wife and said, hey, can I try to make the jump to doing this full time? And lucky for me, it worked. So.
What was her exact response?
I will. No, she's not. She is super awesome about that stuff. She said, well, let's just save up 3 months worth of mortgage payments, and this is your shot.
That's great.
Don't screw it up.
Don't screw it up. No pressure. That's great. It really takes a good support group for any artist.
Let me tell you, anybody who's listening, who's an indie guy, and you're trying to make a go of it, and the day that you can go into the day job and say, guess what, guys, I'm done. That's a day you'll never forget. Either way, if it goes horribly wrong, you'll still never forget that day.
Right. How about your boss? What was he? Was he devastated? I mean, come on. Tell me a good story.
I gave them a month's notice,
wow, that's
and
pretty good.
He told me to my face that I'd never make it.
Oh,
wow.
Are you just like licking your fingers now?
Well, I make a much better living than I did then, and I did go back to their Christmas party a year later, unannounced. And I walked in on a meeting, and I asked him if he had any rush jobs for me.
Oh, man, love it.
And he didn't know what to say. So.
You need a little fire in the belly, man. It's
well,
good.
when somebody tells you you're going to be an abject failure to your face, it's nice to show them that you weren't.
Yeah, it's just a little fuel for the fire, man.
You need a font, for like explosions or expletives, inspired by him, and then named drop
Name it.
the mic.
Yeah.
Like you need one of those out there. So Nate, were you the nerdy 10-year-old that was just completely obsessed by fonts, or did that come a lot later?
No, fonts came later. I really wish, I always say that when I was in design school, I really wish I had paid a lot more attention to typography and a lot less attention to girls and playing guitar.
Right.
Because I didn't know how important that was going to be later in my life. But playing guitar and girls are good too.
It is. It absolutely is a great mix.
So
yeah, if you want to make an ear with the ladies, go ahead and learn a few licks on a guitar, and you
that
got it
and
made.
art. It was either sitting on the quad with a sketchbook or with the acoustic, and it was like fishing.
It's the true story, man. I think playing guitar is a lot higher on the rung of getting girls than drawing, though. I mean, but however you can work yourself into some pretty good situations as an artist.
That's how I met my wife. I met her in college.
Oh, good job.
She tripped over my guitar case in the coffee shop that was on campus, and
there you go, kids. It's not a waste.
With her ever since.
Right after you shoved it in front of her, right? Is that what Joel said?
Oh, I kicked that guitar case in front of every girl who walked by.
Oh yeah, she tripped over it.
Great idea. Good plan for you, man. Hey, you only needed one, so that worked out well.
Yep.
Got the first try.
Yep.
Did you write her a song after that? Come on.
There was. I think we actually recorded it too.
Oh man, I would so love to put you on the spot and make you sing that, but I'm not.
No, that's not going to happen.
That's great. So, all right. So, who is the? So we talked a little bit about your audience of Blambot. Is it mostly the independent artists? Do you get a lot of bigger names coming in and getting your stuff too? Is that how you made your agreement with Dark Horse? Did they see what you had, or how did that kind of come about?
No, I don't really. I'm still freelance. I really love working for Dark Horse. I've worked for just about everybody, and the editorial staff there and everybody I deal with they're ideal. So
right.
I'm really fast when I letter, and they like that, and we have a super good working relationship. So it's just kind of like they give me a ton of work, and I love doing it, and it works out for both of us.
Right.
So.
If I run to the local comic shop, which I do, what do I need to pick up? Latest issue of what? That you've worked on.
That I've worked on.
Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to pick favorites if you don't want to. I won't put you.
We had a bunch of. I know it's a couple years old at this point, but Umbrella Academy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a bunch of fun to work on.
I think did I pick that up on Comixology? Is that where I saw that at? Is Dark Horse on Comixology, Joel? Come on, you read a lot, don't
they
you?
At least have their own app. I'm not sure about Comixology.
Well, that's my train, guys. I gotta go.
I know we got to go.
Yeah, sorry. That's unique. Normally that doesn't happen.
Not around 7, right? Excellent. What?
No, 0.
Anything by Richard Corbin that's out is a bunch of fun,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of my favorite lettering gigs. During a new project, I work out a style guide where I sort of come up with a look for, choose a sort of stable of fonts and how the balloons are going to be, and certain ways I'm going to do sound effects and color palettes and things like that, so that it's uniform and it complements the art. And the one I came up with, I think, for Richard Corbin stuff is really complimentary. That work looks really nice.
That's awesome. Okay, so before we get, I want to continue to walk down this path of Blambot, but before we do, I want to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about a couple of your webcomics that you've done in the past.
Sure.
So I know Matthew had a couple of questions because he really went through some of the archive, and so can you give us a couple of questions, Matt?
I'm more of an illustrator, so I went right for the comics. I'm like, fonts, that's cool, but I wanted to see images and talking things and fighting and all that, and I was not disappointed. And there was one particular image in The Berserker's Daughter that I think it was some weeks ago when Brian was like, oh, maybe we should have this guy on the show, and I went to the Berserker's Daughter site, and the first thing I saw was just a pumpkin just vomiting out of all orifices, and I was like, yes, right away. As soon as I saw that image, so I gotta ask because I love it. Did that particular strip's story start with that one image?
Oh yeah, it totally did. I don't remember what the circumstance was. It must have been around Halloween, or I was thinking about Halloween or something, and or carving a pumpkin, or whatever it was. And I just thought, I wonder if you could put these on your head if you made a big enough hole, and after a while that jack-o'-lantern in your house starts to smell.
Oh yeah, it takes less time than you would think.
Fruit flies on it and everything, and so I
Right.
thought that would make a funny thing if if you were wearing it and you actually got sick. What would that look like? And I thought it would make a really good comedic panel.
Well, it did, because the puke coming out of the eyes is what really sets it off.
Yeah,
it's funny, like
hilarious
vomiting.
and disturbing all at the same
Yeah,
time.
he had a big lunch that day.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Vomiting in real life is horrendous, but anytime I see it in art, it's hilarious. Like Joel has a print that he has. I think he can also get it as a T-shirt of a dragon just like barfing his guts out, but
Right.
it's also hilarious.
I used to have one of a clown throwing up a rainbow.
Oh, that's spot on. Now,
Yeah.
the Berserker's Daughter is not currently running. It's on hiatus, correct?
Yeah, I guess
Is-
you could say that.
Right, it's on hiatus. You can say that. So, is that one of those hiatuses you said, I'll get back to this soon?
It I did the 22. My goal was to do the 22 weeks and then collect
Right.
it like I do with what I did with all my stuff. But when I've got good enough ideas, it'll happen again.
Right.
And it's one of my, I kind of view these webcomics as places I visit.
Right.
I want to, when I start getting really, when I start to pine for visiting that world again, I'll do it. I've got some ideas, but it's a matter of time. I don't know how. When I was doing Atland, I did that for 8 years every week. And
You did.
I probably was a lot less busy then with paying gigs.
Right.
So, but
Only 336 pages of Atlan to entertain you. So if you go to realmofatlan.com, this is truly classic and great stuff. And this is the first thing I was ever exposed to that was your work, Nate. And I remember it being fantastic then, and I think it still holds up.
oh, thanks. It's actually that started because I just needed a way to keep my drawing chops
Right.
going. And you can, if you look at episode 1 compared to the last one, you can see quite a difference in art.
Oh yeah, and
It's a massively better art when you get to the end of it.
And to speak to your completist kind of attitude that you seem to always have, lots of webcomics, they may like go on hiatus, but it seems like they kind of just like almost what we call pod fading in the podcast world. It seems like they slowly just kind of die a slow death. All of these pieces seem very complete. It seems like you've picked a good. It doesn't seem like you just said, I'm not interested anymore. I'm just going to shelve it. It seems like you always wrap these up in a nice little bow after you get through.
Because I hate that too. when I
Right?
read stuff. But when I decided that Atland was going to end, I knew I at least owed it to myself, if no one else, because my primary audience was me.
Right.
That this had to have some sort of a arc of story that had to conclude, and so I made even though I was kind of getting a little tired of it, and that may show. I mean, it probably shows when you read it, but at least I stuck it out till the end.
Right.
Finished that up.
Other people I know, me, just let things die. What a jerk. What a jerk.
Oh.
That's a horrible person to do that. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Realm of Atlan, go back and read that. It is great stuff, and you get a whole complete feeling from that. Any chance you ever going back to that place and visiting again?
I never say never. I've actually, over the past maybe month or so, got a couple of ideas of. I just started to wondering what would Barry and Inky be up to now.
Right.
After that story. So who knows?
Who knows? But
I miss drawing them too. So
yeah, we miss reading it. So do you have any plans for anything upcoming webcomic wise, or do you think it'd be you'd probably go back to one of these places, or is there an idea that's just itching that you want to develop? You don't have to tell us about it.
No, I thought about doing something other than fantasy. I mean, every webcomic I've done has been fantasy based, but because that's a genre that I love and I knew I'd never get bored with it. So that was a big factor in deciding what genre I was going to draw for 8 years.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but
Sure.
I thought of doing maybe something science fiction, something. I always like to have some comedy involved. So
I would be totally excited about that. I know you can't. I know it's nothing solid yet, but when you get ready to do something again, let us know, because you're not only you're everything you do seems to be very complete, and your writing is very humorous. I love it.
oh, thank you.
Good job, Matt. You had some more questions, I'm sure. I didn't mean. I kind of hijacked that, didn't I?
That's all right. Yeah. Well, I want to go back a little bit to Berserker's Daughter, because as I was reading it, I got the distinct feeling that it was kind of like a medieval Calvin and Hobbes. Am I like way off on that, or?
No. I'm massively a fan of Bill Watterson, and I grew up on Calvin and Hobbes. I still think it's the height of comic strips. I don't think there's anything quite as good before or since.
Right.
And I don't know. I love it. I have an actual knitted or stuffed Hobbes doll in my office, sitting on a shelf that somebody I know made me. I've got the entire collected Calvin and Hobbes, the big phone book hardcovers.
Right.
So I'm sure there's some of that bleed through in what I do, but
Well, don't tell Bill Watterson somebody made one for you. He's
yeah.
He's like, no, stop it, burn it.
Yeah.
I love that guy. Did you watch the documentary Stripped?
I did. I don't know if was that what it was called, Stripped. It was. There's something on Netflix that's fairly recent that came out that I watched on.
Oh, that's the Calvin and Hobbes one.
Right.
I think that one's called like Dear Mr. Watterson.
Yeah,
or something
Yes,
like
you're
that.
right. Yep.
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't
yet.
seen that yet. Yeah,
So
I heard
Netflix?
it wasn't that great though.
It's entertaining to the point where there's no new information about Bill Watterson. You're not going to see pictures of him. You're not going to hear him speak. You're not going to see video of him. It's just a bunch of people who really like Calvin and Hobbes talking about Calvin and Hobbes.
Meh.
So that's if you want to sit through that.
I could be down with that. Right.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch. It's nothing I'd watch again.
Right.
There's tidbits of him in Stripped where Dave Kellett was able to get him on the phone, and of course he did the poster for Stripped, like his first cartoon and public cartoon in like 20 years. I know. I mean, the real value for Stripped, if you're looking for some comic strip documentaries, is, I mean, the film is great, but I mean, they interviewed so many people. You get like 2 and 3 minutes with, I mean, industry giants like Jim Davis and some of these people, but the extended interviews, which are extremely affordable on the Stripped site, they really go into a detail. You sit down for like an hour and a half, and it's just Jim Davis or it's just Bill Amend, and they interview all the people that you would think would be in this documentary, and I don't think the phone interview with Bill Watterson was released, but I haven't checked. They released a bunch of new interviews in the last few weeks, and I don't know whether they released the audio, because I mean, he wasn't on camera. They got everybody else. They kind of went to the artist studios. Stefan Pastis is supposed to be really good. I remember hearing Scott Kurtz talk about that one at length. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, and I feel like I've heard other artists say that they were on board with Dear Mr. Watterson until like the end or something, because I haven't seen it, but apparently they don't wrap it up very well.
Yeah, it just kind of, there's really no end, because there's really no beginning or middle. It's just people talking about how much they like Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, it's
So
it's not a formed thought. It's just like a verbal, diarrhea on Calvin and
It's
Hobbes.
nice. They visit his hometown and they visit the local library that has a bunch of his original art. So it's kind of neat if you want to see, his original art. But
that's funny. So is the end of it just a bunch of Calvin Hobbes fans just kind of shrugging, like?
Yeah, kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you guys know Lynn Peralta, who does Geek a Week?
Oh yeah,
he's a really good friend of the show and the network, Frog Pants. And I know back in the day when we first started doing podcasts, he went to Bill Watterson's hometown in an effort to find Bill Watterson. And he went to a local store and he somehow got information to where Bill Watterson's mom lived.
Oh, that's not right.
So his childhood home. So So he goes up and he ends up talking to Bill Watterson's mom and stuff, and he does it in such a way. If you knew Lynn, you would know is not necessarily as creepy as that's just Lynn. He's an unusual person that's just fantastically friendly and just, my God, the nicest, most humble person you've ever met in your life. I have to go back and see if I can't find that. That'd be really interesting to kind of listen to again. I don't remember what he asked her. It was really, now that I think about it, maybe it was weird. You people convinced me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Matt, earlier you mentioned, well, maybe it was you, Brian, mentioned about like the writing and how humorous the writing is for a lot of Nate's work. And I mean, I know when I was reading The Berserker's Daughter, I was trying to figure out like what your process would be, Nate, because like you've got this really cool balance between the kind of humor that you see in like a daily comic strip or a weekly comic strip, but then you've got the whole story and the room to tell the story in a comic page. So how do you approach writing full comic pages but for humor?
Well, here's my problem. My problem is that I really want to draw comic strips, but I can't stop making them more elaborate.
Right.
It's just not in me to be that minimalist. So when I started talking about doing Berserker's Daughter, that was sort of my catchphrase was, this is a comic book that kind of thinks it's a comic strip. And I can't stop drawing trees and backgrounds and that's, I blame Bob Ross for that because I watched a lot of Bob Ross as a kid.
Are you making those happy trees then? Is that?
I still DVR Bob Ross. Right now, if you go on my DVR at home, I've got probably 7 or 8 Bob Ross Joy of Painting episodes. And
that's amazing. He's such a he was such just a great spirit.
Yep.
It was amazing. Cracks me up though. You can't watch it today without feeling a little bit, just laughing a little bit.
Yep.
Well, he was super high.
He's got with that one really long pinky fingernail too. If you watch,
if you know what
creepy.
If you know what I mean. My art teacher also had one of those.
Yeah.
I was told by other more educated people that was the coke sniffing finger, but I don't know how all that works. So
it's the creative claw.
I just saw him scratching with it all the time, which made me disgusted. It's like, don't get away from me from the. Don't touch me with that thing. What is that?
Gross.
Right. So, all right. So speaking of hygiene, let's talk about fitness a little bit too.
Okay.
I know that Nate's he likes to be fit. As many of us artists are in nerds, and the whole geek culture is kind of discovering, if you sit at a desk for 10 years, you're gonna have an impact on your body, and it's gonna be very negative.
Absolutely. When I got married, I was about between 5'8" and 5'9". When I got married, I was 235 pounds.
Wow.
My health was kind of in the toilet. Blood pressure was through the roof. Cholesterol was through the roof. And when I got fitted for my tux, the very cute girl at the tux place measured my waist, and it was kind of devastating to me.
Right.
And I really there was kind of a health scare where I really had to make a serious change in my life. And since then, I've made it a point to really study fitness and proper eating and the science of it, and work hard at cardio and weight training. And I'm now 5'8", 5'9", and I weigh 153 pounds. So
man, that is amazing. And I think that's and from what I've read, that height, that's your target weight. So you're right there, just skimming the bottom, right? You're where you're supposed to be at.
I think so. It's yeah, I went from a 38 waist to a 29.
Right. Now, I want to talk about the impact of health. Of course, quality of life and longevity is something that we all aim for with our health. But one thing you don't think about as an artist, I mean, if you're sick a lot of the time, you can't do what you want to do, which is draw and get out your work. And,
you can do it.
Oh,
but it's gonna suck.
It's gonna suck hard.
Because if you decide to do this freelance, kids, say goodbye to holidays and vacations and those days when you really don't want to do it. You're still gonna have to do it.
You're still doing it because the mortgage people, they still want their money.
Yeah, I get migraines. So I used to get them really bad as a kid, and less so now. Maybe once a year I'll get a bad one, but I can't tell you how many, migraines I've been sitting here working and having a migraine, and my eyes are popping out of my head, and I'm nauseous and barfing, and still working.
Still working, can't leave. So you might
Nope.
as well get healthy and do it well. So, yeah, and I've had arthritis problems. So I don't want this to turn into the old man show. But yeah, I've had arthritis problems. So if you're an artist and you use your hands a lot, and you probably do, if you're designing, and I tell you, you don't really appreciate it. I mean, when I was in my early 30s, I was actually in way more pain than I am now because I was overweight. I was 230, and all this was just, it was killing me, and I felt miserable, and it really impacted my work. And
I also have arthritis. I have arthritis in my neck, and I
Oh,
found
yeah.
that doing a whole bunch of abs work strengthened my neck so much so that it really doesn't even bother me anymore.
Right, I too. A lot of that stuff has disappeared. So we're not necessarily the old man show anymore. Now we're kind of the reinvigorated youth man show, right?
There you go.
That's what we are. Ha! Take that. Go out and run 5 miles. Now, Nate, I like to run, and luckily I have a track that's near me that's got kind of like the soft padding kind of stuff, and so that's really helped my knees a lot. And I'm actually able to go out, and I'll try to go about 5 miles at least 5 times a week.
Wow,
Right?
that's a lot.
That is a lot. And I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and she's health obsessed too. And she's like, and I'm like, am I just burning fat? Not fat. Am I just burning muscle? Am I doing more than I'm supposed to?
Probably for cardio. Well, it depends. If you're building up endurance and stamina and everything, you're doing it right.
Right.
But if
Where
you're
am
just-
where am I going though, man? Sure, I can do 5 miles. How am I going to use that in day-to-day life? I don't know.
Well, if you have
When
to
the
run away
zombies
from,
come, you'll be all
yeah,
set.
I was just gonna say that. Ah.
Great minds, right?
I can
Nice.
avoid the zombies. All right, let's head
Yeah.
back to.
What's really funny is I had to look all this up. I mean, you're talking about 5 miles. I was like, I have no idea how
What
long
is
that
that?
is.
Is that in the US?
That's a good run, man. That's like 8 kilometers. That's like, how long does that take you, Brian? 40 minutes?
No, I'm not that fast. It's around an hour. I don't run really fast. It's kind of a very slow pace.
When I did 5Ks, I could do for 5K in about 27 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's booking it. See, when I say run, I should have said jog.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
because
I'm pretty slow right now because I'm just getting back into it. But I do 4K, which is about 2.5 miles, and I do that
Right,
in
right.
about 27 on a
Right.
good day. But I mean, Dartmouth, Halifax, where I live, is nothing but hills. It's all harbor, glacial, like up, down, up, down, up, down. More
Well, here
up
in
than
Rhode
down, you'd think.
Here in Rhode Island, we have this once a year Muse Tavern beer run where you do a 5K and then they immediately give you free beer after.
that's not a good idea. That's
So that's
a horrible
that's
idea.
really motivating if you like.
Tell me
beer.
they film it.
They don't film
Say.
it, but it's the fastest way to get drunk ever.
I was about to
Because
say.
you eat, in the morning before a run, you're not going to eat anything except maybe a banana or something, and then
Right.
you run, and then you have one beer, and you're at a caloric deficit, so it
Yeah,
just
and-
instantly hits you.
And you're totally dehydrated as well, probably. And so
Yeah.
that's a horrible idea, but I like it. I like it.
It was fun.
Second part is falling down. All right, so
Yeah.
so I want to get back to Blambot before we wrap this up. So where are we going with Blambot? We're going to keep on being consistent like we've been doing. Do we have any big, exciting new things we're planning for Blambot?
We're going to keep on keeping on.
That's great news. That's what I want to hear.
And there's some fun projects coming up that I can't talk about.
Well,
But
that's good.
you will have to keep your eyes peeled, and I will announce them as I am told that I can.
As I am told that I can. Who's the master of you?
Mostly Dark Horse stuff.
Very good.
So
That's it. That's really
that's
super
as far as lettering projects go. As
Right,
far as
right.
fonts and stuff go, that's I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
That's great.
It's pretty fitting that we actually had you on the show tonight, for me anyway, because I spent a good part of the morning searching for a quick fix font for a project that I've been brought in on to kind of just give it a little bit of a kick. And something that I find arduous because I'm not a graphic designer, I do kind of dabble, is finding the font that you want, where to look, all that kind of stuff. So in your, something I noticed immediately, upon reviewing Blambot is that it's a lot easier to kind of find the mood or the font that you're looking for. So what do you think that you've done with Blambot that makes it easier for people to get what they want? I mean, besides the fact that you're dealing with mostly comic people that are coming, to Blambot for comic fonts, and what do you see out there that is like the biggest problem with like searching for fonts on the internet?
Well, every font designer or type house and everything, they all have their own licenses. So you gotta, you gotta pay attention to licenses. It's
Right,
every,
right.
how many other people besides me have an indie,
True story.
there's some weird, everybody has their own little weird licenses. So that's something that's kind of it's a pain to keep track of, but to respect the creator's rights, you got to do that.
Hmm.
As far as organization, I think, like I said earlier, I'm a type A personality, so I like things easily, the least steps in between doing things. So when I designed the Blambot site, I redesigned it last year. I like categorizing. So if you know what you need a science fiction font that's, good for titles, then you just go to titles, you go to science fiction, and you look through what I've got, and if there's something there you like, that's what you get. So
I like that.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem that I found is that fonts are often listed, or the search function on these sites go by font name, which
right.
means nothing. Like
Well, that's actually handy if I have one of those too. I have an alphabetical list of all my fonts that it's called Font Search, and it's just the names. That way, if somebody said, "Oh, there's this great font so and so," and you want to find it, but you don't know what category it's in, you can look it up.
right.
So I want to know just real quick, Nate. What are your thoughts on Comic Sans?
It's great for kids' parties. It's good
Nice.
for menus at low-rent restaurants.
Right. Have you ever thought about coming to Microsoft and going, "Hey, man, really, use something else"?
It's wildly popular. So whatever they did, they tapped into the psyche of the world somehow, and
They totally did.
the problem with it is it's a comic font designed by someone who's not terribly familiar with the reality of comic book fonts.
Right, right. Do you remember the comic chat that Microsoft used to have?
No.
Do you remember that? I ask people that all the time, and no one ever remembers it, but it happened, people. There was it was a comic chat that Microsoft used to have, and you had these little character avatars, basically, of comic characters, and you would get into a chat room, and you would be that character, and it used Comic Sans. That's the only reason why I was really related. But yeah, Comic Sans. Everybody loves to hate the Comic Sans.
Well, hey, it's done well for Microsoft, so good for them.
Good for them. Now, Joel, you said you were doing some searches for fonts on other font sites, and I'm scared of other font sites because every time I seem to try to get one, I always end up wanting to install something else. What kind of font site you going to?
The one that I tend to frequent for quick fixes is usually 1001 free fonts, because the license works out for what my needs are, and I don't really have to worry too much about stuff. I'm on a Mac, so I don't install stuff that I don't do anything really fishy or dangerous on the internet, and there's not a lot of viruses made for Mac, so I tend to do okay as far as safety for font surfing.
You know where I go? Blambot.
You got some brown font on your building, Brian.
Super safe site.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. That was my point earlier, is that like it is really clear and really easy to go to Blambot to find something that you're looking for. If you're looking for these kind of comic title fonts or sci-fi or whatever it is that your mood is, because that was my frustration, is I was looking for something. For it's a ceramics place. Like, I mean, I wanted, and I'm looking for something. I mean, the instructions were something, they wanted something vintage or retro, and I'm just like, well, Jesus, that narrows it down. Like, you get lists of 350 fonts on sites. It's like that doesn't help. Have you done anything recently, Nate, that would strike you as kind of like your favorite, like something of your design, or even if you wanted to plug someone else's? Like, do you have a font that is just like hitting all the happy notes right now?
Well, much like comics and music, when I'm designing fonts, I'm designing to please myself. So I'm my first fan and biggest critic, I guess you could say. But I'm really proud of a font that came out, I don't know, more than 6 months ago. I don't remember. It's called Might Makes Right.
Oh yes, I actually saw that one. I got that.
It's very simple. It's very universal. It's a dialogue font, but it really, for me, was the pinnacle of studying everything that is comic lettering, for me, that's the one I'm probably most proud of.
Yeah, it feels very timeless.
Yeah, I think that one could be used for almost anything, and it'll last a good long time. So
Agreed.
I got that one on my Photoshop right now, actually.
I'm doing a lot now with
Job.
paintbrushes. That's my thing right now. I'm in my paintbrush phase where I'm inking a lot of things virtually and in real life with paint on brushes and making fonts out of that stuff. So
sorry, go ahead.
the last one I just came out with was called Beelzebrush.
Meh. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, it's that one's fun.
Nice.
I'm looking through that, and it's alphabetically listed. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. The alphabetical listing is great when you know what the font is called, but when you're trying to find a font that's based on vintage ceramics, like alphabetical does not help.
Right.
Well, because the other sites don't have anything else but alphabetical. They're not always set up by theme.
Right.
There's something I was going to ask for a second there, and all of a sudden I have completely blanked. Have you noticed? I feel like because I'm learning to paint digitally, and I'm noticing a lot of artists kind of coming out with their favorite dry brush sets. Have you been picking up any of those for your font use?
Mostly just stuff to play with. Like everybody else, I picked up the Friendin brushes.
Right.
That guy just makes some really, really nice brushes, and they're fun to play with. And I'm starting to kind of mess around with making my own. I picked up Manga Studio for the first time 2 or 3 months ago.
Right. Right.
And it's not the best for lettering if you want to letter a comic, but it's really great for the organic process of inking and even sort of quote unquote hand digitally lettering.
Right. Right.
It's good for that stuff. So I've been messing around a lot with that.
Now is that the most recent one that this came out? There was one that this came out in spring, I believe it was, and I was about to upgrade the version I had, and I was debating on it. Now you're making me itch, and I want to get it.
Manga Studio 5 was on sale on Amazon 2 weeks ago or a week ago for $17. It's currently on.
Wow.
It's currently on sale for $29.99.
That's not bad.
So this is, and I did some research and I almost got it, but I just ultimately decided that I didn't really need it because I do most of my work either on paper or in Photoshop. But Manga Studio 5, and then there's EX is the other one. And I guess the only difference is like if you're making an entire book, then you want EX for like page layout and stuff. But if you're only just doing like single ink drawings or covers or whatever, you're managing your paging with another piece of software, like say, Adobe InDesign, then apparently Manga Studio 5 is all you need. You don't need the actual EX, but yeah, it's still 40% off at the moment.
Yeah. I haven't even tapped all the functions of it. I'm still messing around, mostly for lettering purposes. So I'm not even doing a lot of inking in it or coloring or rendering or anything. So
that's awesome. So what's your go-to application that you use for font design?
I usually either start on paper, Bristol brush sketching.
Right. I have that app.
I move everything over to Adobe Illustrator. I do the vast majority of the concept and design phase in Illustrator. And then once I've got all the characters for a font, I move everything over to Font Lab.
Right.
And that's where you actually make, you do all the kerning, you actually make it into a piece of software.
That's awesome. Now, before people run out and go, well, I can make my own fonts, go ahead and try it. It's a lot of work. I'm just going to go over here.
There are no really fantastic books on the market about how to learn to use Font Lab, and there are so many bizarre, quirky little things that if you don't do this, then this won't happen, and then your font won't work quite the way you want it to, and things like that. And then kerning. I mean, you've got to be willing to sit for days and kern every letter with every other letter. If you want to make a really good font.
Right.
If you just want to hack something out, it won't take that long, but I can't do anything halfway, so.
No, you can't. Totally impressed by your skills to do that. I do appreciate that. Thanks. So, all right, we're heading towards the end of our show. Is there anything new and exciting that you want to talk about to let us know what's coming up, or is it kind of still hush-hush? Sounds like you have a couple of things.
I can't talk about some of the Dark Horse gigs, but I do have a limited edition T-shirt coming out.
Ooh, yes.
I should have them for sale in a week and a half, and there's sort of an issue right now in comics where letterers are sort of being moved out of the consciousness as being part of the art process and being more just
Right.
part of the publishing production process.
So are they
And
taking out their credits and everything? What's going on there?
no, not taking out credits, but
Right.
it's though. Well, the fact is, there's a lot of mediocre to bad lettering, but there's still a lot of really good lettering, and really
Right.
good lettering is great graphic design,
Yeah.
and it's the people who do it really well are artists, just like
Yes.
anything else. And so anyway, this T-shirt, I was doing a warm-up sketch. I do some sketchy sort of warm-up designs in the mornings before I get to work, and I made this design that says comic book lettering is an art.
Yee.
And I liked it enough that I finished it and
Right.
put it online, and it kind of exploded. People really dug the design. So I thought, this would make a pretty nifty sort of indie T-shirt design.
Right.
So
I'm down with that.
I'm doing 100 T-shirts,
Wow.
and there's no pre-orders, there's no nothing. Once it's already in the works. I've got a print shop printing them for me, local guys. And once I have them in hand, I will put them up for sale. And when those 100 shirts are gone, they're gone.
That's great. You posted on Twitter as well. I saw that, and I love the design of the shirt. And just to talk to that point real quick, it seems like to me back in the day, it seemed like the letterers were listed pretty high on the list of credits. If you flipped open that comic book and you looked inside and you're like, oh, it was illustrated by this individual, it's inked by this individual, it's written by this person, and there was usually the lettering was listed. Is that still common, or am I remembering that incorrectly?
Yeah, the letterers still get credits on the credits page.
Right.
But I don't know. I think the drawback of the digital age is that pretty much anybody can pick up a font and sort of do at least a hack job at lettering.
Right.
But whether it's fonts or lettering by hand, there's still an artist on the other end who's doing those things. And if they're really good at it, the best letterers are graphic designers at heart. Really.
Right.
So if you don't have that love in you for graphic design, the lettering's gonna to break in or just as a function, you're not giving it much thought. It's not going to be it's not going to be really good. So
I regret not asking you more about it during the show about the difference between a dialogue lettering and kind of an action. Is that still the letterer's responsibility? Is that something he does? Does he do the action stuff, or is it just the dialogue?
Yeah, as far as you mean sound effects?
Right.
Yeah, we get a script, and it's our job. Sometimes we get placements where maybe the editor wants certain things in a certain place, but basically it's our job to make sure everything's very readable, that there's no question that the reader's eye goes from point A to point B to point C.
Right.
We're doing all the design work for the titles. We're doing all the design and thought that goes into sound effects and how they should look and how they represent the sound that's trying to be conveyed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, letterers do some work.
They do a lot of work. And lettering is an art, people. I'm going to get this shirt and wear it proudly.
Cool.
Nate, where can people visit you on the internet?
You can visit me at Blambot, BLAMBOT.com. I'm also on Twitter, and there's a Blambot Facebook page. And I answer emails as well. So
yes, you do, which I'm happy you did, and accepted our invitation here to Comics Coast to Coast. We had a great time with you, Nate. Thank you so much. As soon as you have something else come out, this great Dark Horse stuff that you're having to keep secret. when it matures, come back and let us know what's going on with that. We'd love to hear more about that. Thank you so much. And you can hear all the other shows on comicscoasttocoast.com. We have over 206 interviews. And visit Joel Duggan at Joel Duggan, right? Is on Twitter.
Joel Duggan, just my name, yeah.
Right.
And then there's Starcrossed Online. And don't forget to visit my Patreon page. That is how you guys can help me make more comics.
Very good. And, of course, Matt the Wad at Matt_the_Wad on Twitter. And you can go to mattthewad.com. Matt, are you still there?
Yes, I am indeed. And also I wanted to let people know if they're in or around the Boston area, I'm going to be at the Boston Comic-Con August 8th through 10th.
Hey,
It'll
I'll be
be
there
in
too.
Artist Alley.
Would you hear that? Nate's going to be there too, man.
Ooh, we'll
I'll
have to be
there.
con buddies.
I'll just be walking around on Saturday.
Oh, that's
Awesome. I guess I'll see you there.
Get
All right,
pictures.
cool.
I want to see pictures. Very good. Also, you can follow me at the Brian Dunaway on Twitter. Go to my website at briandunaway.com, comicscoasttocoast.com. Did we have fun? I had fun. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. That's it.
Nice.
We're done,
Very
Nate.
Cool.
Excellent. That was fun.
It was a lot of fun, and we thank you so much, Nate. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, no
and
problem.
this did go out live. We had about probably a max of about 10 people in the chat room.
Nice.
I tried to get them to talk, but you know, now lurkers are right. Chat room.
Yeah.
You still listening in there? I don't know if they are or not. It's kind of a little bit of delay. But thank you for having patience with us as we try to broadcast this live for the first time.
Oh, no problem.
And so I apologize if I was scatterbrained or all over the place. I blame Joel.
Ah.
Ouch.
So which one are you